All right, welcome. We're going to take a look at the project 3 here for Survey, our audio and sound design. It's the first one where you're creating and capturing your own things. So we're going to, in this video, just touch on the process of once you have collected all of your images, your script, your voiceover, and you've made your music using AI. What do we do with them now to create an amazing project in Premiere Pro? So I'm going to pop over here to Premiere and I'm going to open up this exemplar project. This is a great project from a previous semester, just so you can kind of see the end result of what it can look like. And in this case, what you're seeing, if I hit play, I'm just going to play and let you watch it through.
Dear college, you've been the canvas for all my adventures and discoveries. Playing soccer on these grounds has been more than a game. The music in Nashville is the soundtrack of my college story, filling my nights with rhythm and joy. Belmont basketball games are where friends and I bond over the collective passion for our team. The excellence of Nashville's small businesses each offer a unique taste or special memory that is etched into my college experience. In the company of my best friends, I find not just companionship, but a community. Together, we share laughter, life, and faith. The sunsets paint the sky, a backdrop for moments of reflection and gratitude. Walking through the vibrant flowers that bloom on your paths is a testament to the beauty and serenity you offer. Thank you, college, for the endless adventures that make my journey unforgettable.
All right, so that is just an overview of the sort of project that you're going to be creating. So let's go ahead and go look through the files that we'll use for this demo project so that you can practice following along. And then, of course, you'll be doing the project with your own files. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm going to go to where I've downloaded the files. If you haven't got this sample project download, open this up in Dropbox, download all of the contents because this is a little example project I've put together to walk you through all of the steps. So I'm going to go ahead and get this and download. In fact, I'm sorry to do that. I need to actually open this up for myself in an incognito window so that I can see it the way you guys will see it. And then I'm just going to hit download, put this on the desktop, continue with download only, and on the desktop. And save this to the desktop, click save. That's going to download, and in just a second, that'll be done. Meanwhile, I'm going to come over here to Premiere Pro. I'm going to close out this current project, close project, don't save any changes, and I'm going to do a new project. So File, New Project, or you can click New Project right there. We're going to go ahead and name it 1450, last name, first name, Project 3, and project location. We want to save this to our hard drive, so I'll go to the location and choose location, and we're going to save it to an external hard drive. You should have one. In my case right now, I'm just going to save it to the desktop. So I'm going to go here to the desktop and go ahead and make myself a new folder. I'm going to call this 1450. Give it the same name. So 1450, last name, first name, project 3. And I'm just going to give this a little designator so I know it's for my Monday, Wednesday class. Click choose. So now the project is named, and it's going to go into my hard drive or your hard drive. And then now I can simply click create. So that's going to go ahead and create a nice, clean, empty session. I go to my window menu, workspaces, make sure I'm on editing, and then reset to the saved layout. Go change that if you don't have that yet. And then now I'm going to go ahead and import my files. So I'll go to the file menu and click import, or click on the import media down here. So file and import, or command I. And then let's go to my desktop where I downloaded all of that content. Looks like it's right there, but it's currently zipped up. So I'm going to come to my desktop and I need to unzip this. So actually I can't import this until I've unzipped the file. So I'm going to go to my desktop and let's undo that zip file. Oh, it looks like it's already actually opened up right there. Perfect. All right. So, and this has my AI music, graphic renders. If in the event that you have just downloaded this, just double click on the zip file and it will give you all of those files right here beside. So once those files are downloaded, we're going to have the music that we generated. We've got some images, some Photoshop documents, our sound effects that I've already downloaded, but I will show you how to download those as well, and the voiceover that you recorded with your voice memos. So Now I can import those. So I'm going to come back to Premiere, Command I to import. Let's go to the desktop, and I'm going to go to my project that I just opened, and I'm going to select them all. So if you're not seeing list view, make sure you switch to list, so I can just click and drag over them all and hit import. And in this case, it says, okay, you're wanting to import Photoshop files. If you were importing JPEGs or PNG files, they wouldn't still have layers, but these are Photoshop files, so these actually still have layers. So I'm just going to tell it to merge the layers so that I get just the flattened images and not individual layers, at least for this project. You can certainly import layered files and do all sorts of interesting animations. But for the purposes of this class, I'm just going to say, go ahead and merge all the layers so that they just come in as a single flat image. Now here's all my files. I'm going to go ahead and switch this to list view so I can see them a little more easily. And now we need to create a new sequence, a new timeline for us to edit in. So I'll go to the File menu, choose New Sequence. And at least at this point in the semester, we're making a square image for this. So I'm going to look in my setting options, and depending on which version of Premiere you have, you may or may not have the exact same ones. We now have this social preset in the current version of Premiere that is a aspect ratio of 1:1, whereas normal widescreen might be 16 by 9, so it's really wide, or vertical format portrait is 9 by 16. But I'm just going to come down to a 1080p sequence here, and I'm going to do this as a 24 frame per second sequence. So I came into the digital SLR, the 1080p sequence, and then chose the one at 24 frames per second. I'm going to give this sequence the same name, 1450, last name, first name, project 3, sequence, and hit OK. And that's going to create my new sequence file right here and give me the timeline ready to start editing. So let's do two things first. We need our voiceover and we need our music in, and then we need to start laying in our images. So I'm going to open up my AI music, which I have hopefully imported. So if you've already made this in class, I double click it, which loads it up here in the source viewer. And now that it's in the source viewer, I want to put this down here on an audio track. So I'm just going to make sure that the audio source patch is plugged in here. I'm going to put it on the lowest track, and then the period key will overwrite the audio from here down into whatever track has the source patch. And there it is. Now, if you've forgotten your shortcuts for Premiere, plus and minus, zoom us in and out on our audio or on our waveforms and clips. Backslash key will zoom us until we're seeing the whole length of the video project. And then, of course, Shift plus and minus toggle our clips between tall and short. So Shift plus, Shift minus. I'm going to go ahead and make them nice and tall. Now, the next thing I need to load in is the voiceover that I've recorded. I load this up into the viewer. I can see that it's going to need some mixing. There's everything from some extra random sounds and lip smacks at the beginning and end we'll need to clean up, but let's just see how it sounds.
Dear College.
Okay, so pretty good, but some parts are louder and quieter. We're going to have to mix that. So let's go and put this here on audio 1. I'm going to move my playhead back to the very beginning, so the clip loads into audio track 1. Period key puts it in. All right, so we're in pretty good shape, and I'm going to zoom in just a little bit here. First thing I want to do is clean up the very beginning of this voiceover track. So let's hit play. Let's see how it sounds in general.
Dear College.
All right, so we can see here that she doesn't actually start until right here.
Dear College.
So we want to trim up or clean up our audio. So I do like that there's a little bit of time before the voiceover starts. So I'm going to go ahead and just trim off the excess here. And
Dear College.
The levels are obviously not done yet. I might give her just a little bit of space and add a little cross dissolve right here. If you don't have the cross dissolve handles, you can always select it, and then we can go in and we want to add in our sequence the apply audio transition, or Shift Command D. So that applies a little transition there to get rid of that deep breath she made.
Dear College.
And just have some mixing to do. I'll come over here to the end and trim off any end.
That make my journey
Let's solo her voice for a second.
unforgettable.
All right, and we hear her stop right there. So I'm going to trim off the end. You want to do the same. In this case, we're shooting for a video that is 1 minute or under, not even 1 second or one frame over 1 minute, because we're practicing for creating 4 different social media platforms that require exact amount of time, as in you cannot go even 1 second over, or they won't even upload to certain social media platforms. So we're just going to make sure that's exactly 1 minute. The next thing we need to do is open our window essential sound panel. And we need to go through and do a couple things. First, let's solo this voice memo and just do an initial kind of cleanup on it. So if you don't see with the Essential Sound panel, if you don't see the audio tagged, I'm going to select the voice memo and tag this as dialogue. And now I'll get a list of options that may or may not already be open. If they're all open, just go through and click on the name of them to close them to clean things up a little bit. Now, the newer versions of Premiere will have this Enhance Speech, which will do a lot of these things for you already. So if you just click Enhance, it'll use AI to clean up this audio quite a bit. But for our purposes, let's walk through the clean steps. I'm going to click on Loudness and click Auto Match. And when I do that, we see that it's just gone through and brought up the level. If I undo that, you see that's the level where the audio was. And if I redo Shift-Command-Z,
On these grounds has
there we
been more
go.
than a
So the audio is playing. It says it was auto-matched to a target of -23 loudness units. But if we look here on our meter, then we can actually look at the numbers and see what is the average level, average loudness for this. So if I expand this a little bit so I can see it a little more easily,
game. The music in Nashville is the soundtrack of my college story,
we can
filling my
see
nights with
that
rhythm
she's
and
averaging around -12. Few words are a little bit louder, few words are a little bit quieter, but averaging around -12, which is exactly what we're looking for. Now we'll go through and do a little bit more with this, refine it a little bit more later, but for now, we just want it kind of bouncing around -12. If,
basketball
let's
games
say,
are where
it was
friends
way
and I
too quiet,
bond
if it
over
was a
the
lot
collective
quieter, then we could grab this clip volume and just push it up. So if it was, for example, I don't know, if it was still down here, if I turn this off,
passion for our team.
I can see
The
it's
excellence
way
of
down at like
Nashville's small
-18.
businesses
So to
each
get it up to
offer a unique
-12, I would
taste,
need to
a
add
special
6
memory that is
dB here
etched
with the
into
clip
my
volume.
college-
So I could grab this clip volume and turn it up 6 dB, which over right here, you should be able to see I'm turning it up. And if I get it closer to 6, pull this in just a little bit, crank that up to 6 dB, then you should see that now it's going to be closer to -12.
college experience. In the company of my best friends,
So that's essentially what we're doing. I'm just going to reset that by double clicking. That's what we're doing with this auto loudness, is letting it automatically bring that up to that standard reference level. Now let's grab our music track and do the same. If it's not tagged as music already, I'll clear the audio type and tag it as music. But in this case, the auto tagging feature already had it figured out that that was music. I'll open up the loudness and auto match. And that matches the music to -25 loudness units. So if I solo that music out now and hit play, I can see that's a little closer to -15, -16, so it's a little bit quieter. And this music sounds really good. But now when I listen to both of them,
dear college, you've been the
they're
campus
actually
for
pretty
all
well balanced together. So we're in a good spot. Now, the next thing I need to use here is this music is obviously the wrong length. Now, if I just came in and I just trimmed it off, that's fine, but
you offer.
it just kind of ends. So what I'd love is to still have this ending here. So let's zoom in on this. I'll hit the plus key a few times. And the only thing I'm noticing that's a problem is this fade is really long. It really kind of ends around there. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this down until I don't have any excess audio at the end. And then I might just go ahead and add a little fade right here. This is already tagged as music. So now with this auto matched, oh yes, auto match again. There it is. I'm going to open up the duration box. Now the duration box, when I turn this on, has two options. First, it's going to analyze it. Says it's currently 1 minute and 55 seconds. And I can either remix or stretch. If I were to hit stretch, I don't want to do this, but if I did, that's just going to stretch, speed up, or slow down the whole piece of music. So if I said stretch and I said make this 1 minute, 1.0.0, then it just speeds that whole thing up. So it's going to sound a little ridiculous. And it's going to take
all
a
my
second.
adventures and discoveries. Playing soccer.
See here that that's just playing it faster. That's not what I want. So I'm going to hit remix instead. And when I hit remix and set it to 1 minute, it says, okay. And we suddenly see these little wobbly lines that appear in the middle.
Soccer on these grounds has been more than a game.
And what it's doing is it's cutting out different parts of the song, repeating other parts in order to get it here to this 1 minute length, which is pretty amazing. Because that's something we used to have to do as editors. We have to go and chop up and move around and take certain parts out and put others in. It required a real musical editing ability. But let's just listen to everywhere we see one of those little squiggly lines, because it has removed something. And let's see if it's seamless enough that we don't hear it.
The soundtrack of my college story, filling my nights with rhythm and
Beautiful.
that is etched into my college experience.
Amazing. So if it's not quite what we want, we can also come in here and I could turn on this customize and I could say, well, break it up into more segments. And then you'll see it cuts out and removes other parts of the song. Or maybe I want more harmonic variation and that chooses other parts. Or maybe I want more melodic variation and that kept the whole intro, but then chopped out other pieces.
Together we share laughter, life, and faith. The sunsets paint the sky, a backdrop for...
I actually kind of like that one a little bit better. Problem is it goes a little bit over 1 minute, just about 12 frames. So I'm going to zoom in and maybe just make this a little bit shorter. So I'm just going to make this, trim this little guy until when I get to the end, it is under 1 minute. Okay, perfect. It's only a hair under 1 minute, but that is under 1 minute. So it's going to work just fine and it'll be accepted. Let's see how the video ends.
That make my journey unforgettable.
Beautiful. So now we've got a great little ending. And let's make sure that we add a little fade to the end of that. Hear it.
Unforgettable.
Nice. Sounds great. All right, so we've got all of our stuff in place. We're ready to start adding our images and move on. So I'm going to zoom in just a little bit here and hit play.
Dear college, you've been the canvas for all my adventures and discoveries.
Awesome. So I'm going to stop it right there. I'm watching her voice and I'm going to hit the O key to set an out point. So we need the first image. Now, you should have already gone and chosen your images. So this is, again, just an example. I'm going to open up these graphic renders and double click on this first one, this Belmont2.psd, so we can see her image up here. It's kind of a vertical image, maybe a 4:5 aspect ratio, but we can also see it's highlighted gray, which means that this has already been kind of preset to be 5 seconds long. Now, the good thing about an image is we can make it as long as we want. We could repeat it for infinity. So if I see this already limited by the import settings to 5 seconds, I'm just going to clear those in and out points. So you can either right click on this gray area and choose clear in and out, or Option X will also clear in and outs. Option or Alt X clears in and out points. So I'm going to clear that out. I've got this right here and I want to put my video clips right here on this video track. So video 1 just as the base layer. So I'm just going to select it, make sure that my source patch is turned on and go in here to video 1. And I'm going to put my playhead at the beginning. I've got my in and out point selected, the period key. We'll simply place that image in, and there it is. Now, one thing that we did not do yet is we forgot to change this, at least in this year's version of the project. We're doing this as a square video. And you notice this is currently a rectangular 16:9 or 16 units wide by 9 tall. So we need to change this to a square. So I'm going to go to this sequence that I made. So we already named it. I'm going to close everything up and find the sequence itself. There it is. And we just need to change this. Instead of 1920 pixels wide by 1080 tall, we're going to make it 1080 wide by 1080 tall. So to do that, go to the sequence, right click on it and choose sequence settings. And inside the sequence settings, I can see the frame size is 1920 horizontal by 1080 vertical. So let's just put the same number in both. So 1080, 1080. And now when I hit OK, it says, well, I'm going to have to get rid of the preview files. That's OK. And boom, now we have a nice square video. All right, so first off, I'm just going to go in and put a few images in so that you can follow along with the process. So I play this.
Dear college, you've been the canvas for all my adventures and discoveries.
Nice. And that looks good, but we can tell the difference between the image itself, which must be a lot bigger than 1080 pixels wide and high, because when it's here in this 1080 by 1080 frame, we're only seeing a little kind of chunk of it. That's okay though, because that's going to let us zoom in and pan around on this image. So let's go through and lay down a few more just so we kind of have a starting point. So I'll go to my next part using my up and down arrow keys to move my playhead, set my in point, and let's listen to the next part.
Playing soccer on these grounds has been more than a game.
Okay, I like that. She says playing soccer. I'll set my in and out points, go open up my graphics, and I see this. Let's see, there's a basketball. I think she had soccer in here somewhere. There it is, soccer ball. I'll double click. There's our soccer ball. It's also got in and out points set to 5 seconds. Let's clear those. Right click, clear in and out, or Option X. And it's ready to go. I'm going to put it in the same track. Period. Just drops it right in. And there's my soccer ball. Hit my down arrow, set my in point.
The music in Nashville is the soundtrack of my college story, filling my nights with rhythm and joy.
Nice. Set my out point. So this one's going to be about music. So I'm going to load up this concert picture. Same thing. All right. Let's clear the in and out points. Option X. There it is. And period. drops it right into place. Okay, so we can see we're only seeing the little 1080 square in the middle of this. That's great. This is going to let us go through and really make some adjustments visually. So, okay, I'm feeling good about this. And of course, we would just repeat this process. I'll hit my down arrow, come through, set my endpoints.
Belmont basketball games are where friends and I bond over the collective passion for our team.
All right, set my out points, load up something like this basketball shot, clear the in and outs with Option X, and period to drop it in. And then let's see, there's so many other things here. Now, since we're just using this as a demo, that's all I'm going to do for now, just so you can kind of be able to go through and do the same thing for yours. Now, let's talk about the next few things. We need to add some movement and animation to these images. So here's what we need to do. For this project, I'm going to, first, I want to adjust the size, the scale of this image. And in the effect controls, we already learned earlier how to toggle open the motion setting and then choose something like scale. And then we can click on this scale number and drag it left and right. And we can scale that down, but we don't want to be leaving black bars on either side. So I know that by scaling it down right now, it says it's scaled down to 29%. It's going to leave these black bars, which doesn't look very good, doesn't look very professional. So I'm going to do a couple things. First, I don't have to actually come in here and drag this, but what I do want to show you is if I right click on this clip, I have two options, scale to frame size and set to frame size. Now in the newest versions of Premiere, this says fit to frame, and that's the one we want to use, set to frame size or fit to frame. Here's why. If I choose set to frame size, you'll see it will just rescale. It'll actually adjust the scale number until it fits in at least one dimension in this square frame. So even if this was set to 100, if I right click and choose fit to frame, or in this case, set to frame size, it just changes the scale setting. Now, what's confusing about this is I'm going to undo until it's back at 100%. We have already observed before, if I scale this up, well, once we're above 100%, we start to lose some quality, but it's a pretty high quality image, so it's actually not looking that bad. But if I made the mistake of right clicking and choosing scale to frame size, do not do this. But if I did, you'll notice it looks similar. It shrank this down, but the scale is still 100%. And what it was actually doing behind the scenes is resizing the image itself. So now if I come in and I try to scale this up, let me just blow this up, you'll notice the quality falls apart really quick because it's just actually changing the image. It's scaling it down. That's not what we want. So I'm going to undo until we're back to where we started and right click and choose set to frame size. And that will actually change its size using the scale property. I know it's weird. I don't know why they named it that way, but that's what it is. So I'm going to do that to all these. I'm just going to select both of these clips. Actually, I'll select all three of them, right click and choose set to frame size and let it automatically adjust the size via the effect controls to whatever size it needs to fit. All right, now we're going to look at how to add some animation. Now, one setting I like to have, you'll notice when I click my playhead right here, it's not automatically selecting the soccer ball and loading it up, unless under the sequence menu, we turn on selection follows playhead. So go to your sequence menu and turn that on. And now whenever you put your playhead over one of these clips, you'll notice it's automatically selecting the clip and loading it into the effect controls. So, all right, we're in a good shape, ready to start animating these. And so here we go. Let's do a little animation. All right, time for a little animation first. Now, animation is not hard, but it does take a second to think it through. So I'm going to just walk you through a very simple animation. First off, let's just start with the image right here and then zoom in. So I'm going to start with it right here. I'm going to select this, open up the effect controls window. So Shift 5 if you don't have that open. And on the left-hand side, we see position and scale. Now we've adjusted these before in class. If you choose the word position or scale, you get these little handles and then you can resize it. Or you can simply drag this number left and right to adjust the size. Or you can drag these numbers left and right to adjust the X or Y position. Okay, so straightforward. Let's go ahead and resize this back up. Let's say we just wanted to do a little simple zoom in. So I'm going to drag this up a little bit higher. And once I've clicked on this, I'm actually going to go to the view menu and make sure Snap in Program Monitor is turned on, because it's nice to be able to have it snap to the edges and to the centers. Now let's just do a little zoom just for practice. So first off, make sure your playhead is at the very beginning of this clip. So I'll hit the up arrow. or you can just drag it up here in the effect controls window. So it's right there. And then to do a very simple animation, I'm going to come to position and scale. I'm going to click on the toggle animation or turn on this little stopwatch next to them. Now, just so you can see what's happening, I'm also going to toggle open these little arrows, which is going to show you what's happening. So with position or scale selected now, I'm just going to say, so what's happened is as soon as I turn those on, you see these little diamonds got created right here. And those are what we call keyframes. And those keyframes are right here, and they have locked in this position, these exact numbers, and that exact scale. Now, if I move forward just a little ways in the video, and I change this scale number, let's say I increase it just to 46%, you'll notice that made a new keyframe. And now it automatically goes from whatever this original keyframe was, at 29%, up to 46. So if I rewind this, you see these numbers changing as it just makes its way from one keyframe, which has a value stored of 28.1, and it just moves to whatever that next keyframe was. So simple animation. It simply had to have one keyframe to lock in an initial value. And then as it played, once we made any change with the playhead someplace else, it then stored that in a new keyframe. Now here's the amazing thing about this. If I hit play, it makes a nice simple little animation. What if I wanted it to take the whole time? Because right now when it gets to that keyframe, it just stops, and now it's sitting at 46.1 for the whole rest of the clip. If I wanted it to take a little longer, I can simply grab this keyframe and drag it later in the clip, maybe even all the way to the end. And now it's going to take the whole clip to make that change from 28.1.
Dear College, you've been the canvas for all my adventures and discoveries.
All the way up to there. Now, if you want to jump between keyframes even more easily, you can actually use these left and right arrows. So if I hit left, if I hit right. So it's very simple to select these clips and maybe jump to exact keyframes. So you can simply hit the left and right, and it'll jump back and forth between them. So if you go, I want it to be a little bit higher, a little bit lower, you can hit the go to next keyframe to go to exactly that size or that place, and then you could adjust it. Now, the problem with our cool little animation right now is we've still got these ugly black bars, and it's zooming in, but it's not really zooming to anything. It's not really zooming in on her.
You've been the canvas.
It's just kind of zooming. So what we want to do with these animations is create interest. We want to draw the viewer's eye. So I'm going to just get rid of this animation I've done, which I can do a couple ways. I could either simply select these little keyframes and hit delete. I can click and drag over to select one or more of them and hit delete. Or I can come over and just turn off the animation. If I turn off this little toggle animation, it's going to say, but this is going to delete keyframes. Do you want to continue? I'm going to say, okay. And that's the quickest way. If you've accidentally got too much animation or maybe messed something up, just go and turn them off and it'll just delete all the keyframes, or select them and delete. All right, now let's do an intentional zoom. So I'm going to hit my up arrow to go back to the very beginning. I'm going to turn on position and scale. And then I want to go ahead and make this look start where I want. So when I listen to her, she says, Dear College.
Dear College, you've been the canvas for all my adventures and discoveries.
You've been the canvas for all my adventures and discoveries. So I'm going to start maybe up here in the sky and like pan down to her. So I'm going to make my keyframes. I can see that they're made, and the first ones get made as soon as I turn on the stopwatch. And then I'm going to choose the word position or scale until I get my little handles. And I'm going to just drag and scale way up. And if it's not big enough, I'll just hover over the word scale and drag it way up. And let's start up here in this tree. There we go. And that's kind of nice. And I'm thinking we'll kind of like pan down as she talks and kind of bring Carly up here into like this full frame. So let's start here, put this sunshine. That looks nice. And I'm scaled up maybe like 100 or so %. Okay. So now at that keyframe where this playhead position is, that's where it's at. And let's hit play.
Dear College, you've been the canvas for...
So I think maybe about here, I would like it to be to her. So I can either add a new keyframe by clicking on this add keyframe button and then just change the values to whatever I want. So I could now come in and grab this and drag it over And now the position and scale, I've only changed the position. I haven't actually changed the scale, but I still have a new keyframe there. So let's see what that looks like. If we rewind, I can see exactly what it's going to do. Go from this position and scale to this position and scale.
Dear College, you've been the canvas for all my adventures and
So that's pretty cool. It looks pretty good. This looks like she was photoshopped, but it moves kind of fast. It doesn't look very professional to me. I think it'd be nice if
Dear
it
College,
zoomed out a little
you've
bit
been
more
the canvas for all
instead of just zooming straight to a close-up of her. So let's make sure my playhead is on exactly this keyframe. So I can either try to drag it until it's exactly on, but that's a little difficult to see. So the way I do it is I use these arrows. So if I click go to next keyframe, boom, it takes me directly to where that is. And now I want to adjust this scale down and maybe put it to where she is. Let's just keep shrinking. There we go. That's pretty good. So now if we scroll back, we see it's going to start here at this position and scale number. And as it moves forward,
Dear College,
it moves and it zooms out. And that looks nice. So let's hit play and check it out.
Dear College, you've been the canvas for all my adventures and
Nice. So it looks okay. I kind of wish it took just a little bit longer to get to her. So I'm going to take these two keyframes and I'll just click and drag over them to select them. And then let's put them a little bit later. Let's put them actually pretty close to the end of the clip. Let's see it now.
Dear College, you've been the canvas for all my adventures and discoveries.
All right. And that looks pretty good.
Playing
Now, the one thing that I don't see that I feel like would make it look even nicer is if you can see that by default, these keyframes just immediately go from whatever value is in the first keyframe to the next value. They do it in what we call a linear fashion, just increasing by whatever amount this is. So what we can do, though, is we can actually add adjustments to it. That's what you see with these lines. So we can speed it up and slow it down so it doesn't just go linearly from one scale size to the next. What we can do for that is, let's take these first ones. And if we come up here and we look at this, you can think of these keyframes. I'm going to click and select over them so that I can select both those keyframes. And if you right click on one, so I'll use my right mouse button to click on it, and go to temporal or time interpolation. And since I'm going out of that one keyframe, I'm going to choose to ease out of this first keyframe. And when I do, you'll notice this actually changes the look of that keyframe. And now there's a little curve to these lines. So it's, in other words, it's going to start a little slower and speed up into this move. So watch, it'll start a little slower and speed up.
Dear College, you've been the canvas for all my adventures and discoveries.
And that was definitely a smoother start, but when it gets to her, it's moving pretty fast and it just kind of stops. So what if we have it ease into this second keyframe? So to do that, I'm going to select those. I'm just clicking and dragging until I've selected them both. Right click and choose temporal interpolation ease in, because the playhead is coming into those keyframes. We're going to ease into them. And now you can see it's going to start slow, speed up, and then as it's getting to these next ones, it's going to ease into it or slow down. Let's see what that looks like now.
Dear College, you've been the canvas for all my adventures and discoveries.
You see how it kind of slowed down as it rolled into that? And that looks really nice. So I think the only other thing I might add here is maybe a little cross dissolve to the beginning. So I'll click on the first part. Command D adds a nice little cross dissolve. And let's just make that kind of slowly fade in. So play.
Dear College, you've been the canvas for all my adventures and discoveries. Playing
Pretty nice. Awesome. Let's do just a couple more of these just so we've got that as an option. I'm going to come here to this soccer ball, select it. And what I'd like for this is a little bit different.
Playing soccer on these grounds has been more than a game.
So she says playing soccer on these grounds. First off, I want this to fill up the whole frame. So I'm going to turn on position and scale with my playhead at the very beginning. And I'm going to just grab this scale. And if you just click on the number, then you can use your up and down arrow keys to move it up until those black bars on the sides are gone. I'm going to stop right there. That looks pretty good. And so I've got keyframes locked in for this position. So I hit play.
Playing soccer on these grounds has been more than a game.
And maybe I want this to kind of zoom towards me like someone's kicked the ball. Okay, so I'm actually going to just hit the down arrow. Oops, that jumps me to my next clip. But if I hit the left arrow one time, now I'm on the very last frame of that soccer ball. If I zoom in, you can actually see it. So now if I go and I say, okay, let's make that scale up. So it's like kind of really big, kind of like boom, like somebody kicked it. Well, let's go see what that looks like. Hit play.
Playing soccer on these grounds has been more than a game.
And the problem is she says playing soccer on these grounds, but the soccer ball itself is only on the screen for a second, so we don't really see it for very long before it's zooming at us.
Playing soccer on these grounds has been more.
What would be cooler is if it held on the soccer ball shot for a second, and then when we hear a kick, we'll add a kick later, like somebody kicks it, then it shoots off at us. So how do we do that? Well, what we can do is I'm going to come to these first, this position and scale, and I'm going to select both of those keyframes because they've got locked in this scale and this size. I'm going to copy those, Command C. And then I'm going to go maybe here to the middle of this clip. So the ball just sits there on screen. And I'm going to paste those two keyframes. Because remember, all the keyframe is doing is saying, at this exact moment, you should be this size or this scale. And since we've got two sets of keyframes now that are the exact same size and scale, it's just going to be locked in to that size the whole time. Watch.
Playing soccer on these grounds has been more than a game.
But then right when it's done with that one, it's now going to this one, which is scaled up a lot. So suddenly it goes from that same size and scale to boom,
more than a game,
kicking at us. That's pretty cool. So in fact, I even like the fact that it's really fast. I don't think I'm going to ease out or ease in. So, but you can see how if you want something to hold a certain size, then we can lock in that initial, we can copy and paste those keyframes. And if we have the same values in two different sets, it's just going to stay put between those two. So it's not going to grow. It's not going to move its location. So we'll get back to that with some size.
Grounds has been more than a game.
Nice. All right, let's do the concert one. I'm going to come over here. Let's hit the up arrow so I'm at the very first frame. I'll turn on position and scale to create my initial keyframes, and then I'll choose the word position or scale. This case, I think what I'd like, instead of a zoom, what if we just zoom in a little bit here, and instead of zooming, we kind of like pan over to show this artist. So I'm going to start, since she says, let's see what she says.
The music in Nashville is the soundtrack of my college story, filling my nights with rhythm and joy.
Interesting. Okay. So in this case, I've got this one. I'm just going to select position or scale, and I'm going to pan it kind of to this rock star. Let's zoom in just a little bit more and put it over here. Okay. And so now that keyframe is locked in, and now let's hit play.
The music in Nashville is the soundtrack of my college story, filling my nights with rhythm and joy.
All right. And I'm going to let it go kind of almost to the end, maybe somewhere 3/4 the way through. And let's choose position or scale. And let's have this get over to where we've got our artist kind of right here. Nice. And I maybe am even going to scale him up a little bit more to make him a little bit more prominent. Looks pretty cool. And because I've changed both the position and scale, new keyframes got created. I'll click this back, go to previous keyframe, and hit play, and let's see how that looks.
The music in Nashville is the soundtrack of my college story, filling my nights with rhythm.
It's pretty cool. Except I don't love that it just kind of stops. So let's do the same thing. I'm going to select both these first keyframes. And since the playhead is playing out of them, I want to right click on them and choose ease out. And these two, the playhead is going to ease into them. So I'm going to select them, right click and choose ease in. And let's see how that looks now.
The music in Nashville is the soundtrack of my college story, filling my nights with rhythm and joy. Belmont.
Pretty good. All right. The only thing is, I think I don't love him just sitting on screen for that long. So let's take this and I'm going to scooch it closer to the end. Maybe we can put it at the very last frame. Let's see how that looks.
The music in Nashville is the soundtrack of my college story, filling my nights with rhythm and joy. Belmont basketball game.
That's actually pretty cool. I think that looks good. All right, I'm actually going to trim this Belmont basketball game shot a little bit shorter. And this one, I'm going to move those to the very end. I think that looks nice. Okay, so you're getting the gist of this at this point. We're adding these keyframes to change the position and scale over time.
Belmont basketball games are where friends.
And this one, maybe we'll start zoomed in and then scale out. So I'm going to take this.
Belmont basketball games are where friends and I bond over the collective passion for our team.
Not bad. Let's go to the very beginning of this. Let's let this set the position and scale. And then let's take this. I'm going to zoom way in. Maybe not quite that much. Maybe start with just faces. Oh, that's kind of cute. Let's choose position to scale. Now, this little guy right here, I've seen several people grab that. That's the anchor point. We're not going to worry about the anchor point, but you don't need to click and move it. It's helpful if you leave it alone, in fact. More advanced animations we'll get to. But I'm going to start with a zoom in on their face. And then...
Belmont basketball games are where friends and I bond over the collective passion for our...
I like it, so I'm just going to play forward. And then let's change this scale. I'm going to zoom out. And then, there we go. Let's kind of zoom out until she gets to that point. Let's see what that looks like now.
Belmont basketball games are where friends and I bond over the collective passion for our team.
That's pretty cool. All right, so that looks pretty good. Maybe I want those to be at the very last frame, so I'll drag them to the last frame.
Belmont basketball games are where friends and I bond over the collective passion for our...
Now, I'm going to show you one last trick for this. In this video, I want no black bars, not on the sides, not on vertical. But let's say that this image, I really liked it. And so when I bring it down, I'm going to be careful here. And do note that if you accidentally move something when your playhead is someplace else, it adds a new keyframe. So you notice that added a random one. So if I hit play now, it's going to look like this.
Belmont basketball games are where friends and I bond over the collective passion for our team.
So you see what happened there. Because I had the playhead in a different place, then it actually just added another keyframe. You can always just delete that, or you could delete any extras if you're like, wait, it's going to one and then changing back to something different. Instead, let's say if I got to this point and I wanted it to be like this whole image, like right here. What do I do? Maybe there's some really important stuff on the sides. I want everybody to be able to see that. What do I do about these black bars? Well, the way that we handle it most commonly, and you'll see this on TV all the time now because there's so much vertical content on widescreen TVs, especially on news or documentaries, is we need to fill these black bars with something. So what do we fill it with? Here's the secret. I'm going to take this clip and I'm going to move it up one level. So you can either click it and drag it, or if you remember, Option up and down arrow will move that up. So I've got this cool little animation on it.
Games are
it
where
looks
friends
good,
and I bond over the collective passion.
but it's leaving black bars. So here's what we do. We need to copy this clip. How do we do it? We've learned before. Hold the Option key down, click and drag, and that copies the clip. Well, that doesn't really help us because it's a perfect copy. But with this bottom clip, now we want to turn it into a background, just like a layer in Photoshop. So I'm going to select this background clip. I'm going to turn off the position and scale, and it's going to say, oh, you're going to lose the keyframes. That's correct. That's what I want. I'm going to turn off position and scale. So it's not animated at all. And now I'm simply going to take this background clip and scale it up. And what that does is it's kind of filling in these black bars with this background. Now it looks a little funky, obviously, because it's, you're just seeing like a duplication of this top image. So we need to do something to make it not quite as distracting to the eye. And the way to do that is going to be to go to our effects. So go to our Shift 7 or under our window menu, go to Effects. And then under Effects, I'm going to look for Blur and find that Gaussian blur like we used in the previous project. And I'm going to drag and drop that onto this underlying clip that's supposed to be our background. And I'm going to come over and turn up the blurriness. When I turn up that blurriness, you can see now it acts as a backdrop that has the same colors and related to the image itself, but it doesn't have ugly black bars and it's not distracting. So I'm just going to grab that, make it as blurry as you want. And now it's a background for our image that looks nice. Let's see.
Enjoy. Belmont basketball games are where friends and I bond over the collective passion.
Nice. So that looks really good. And we don't have ugly black bars. So as you go through and you're doing your animations, if there's an animation or move you're trying to do that's going to leave black bars, make sure to make a copy of the clip, put it underneath, and then add some Gaussian blur and crank up the blurriness on that background clip. And that's going to go a long way. In the next section, we're going to take a look at some sound design and build some sound design for these first few clips. And then we'll go through and add some interesting transitions and continue to build on our project. All right, so now it's time to do a little bit of sound design. So again, I'm not going to go through every single one of these, but for our sound design, we need to go ahead and set up our audio. I hit my tilde key and Shift plus to make these a little taller. And we're going to need to organize our audio tracks so that we are capable of now kind of like putting in our sound effects. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I need to make some more audio tracks. So I'm going to right click on this second one. So right mouse button, or you can actually just hold the control key down and click. And I'm going to add a track. And let's see, I want a total of 6 tracks. So I'll just control click and add track until I see a 6. And let's turn on all their targets. And now I need to rename these. So this audio one is going to be our dialogue track. So I'll right click and rename and call it dialogue. Digilog, so close, dialogue. Next one, the next couple, I'm going to rename this SFX1. And the next one, let's hit Shift plus so that they're all nice and tall. Rename SFX2. This one is going to become not SFX, Ambience 1. And the next one will be Ambience 2. And the last one, since we've already got our music track on it, will be music. All right. So now we need to go and find some ambiences and sound effects. So I'm going to bring this down here. I'm going to hover between these and push this up a little bit so I have a little more room for my sound. In fact, I'm just going to make all of this. Since we're going to work on sound for a second, I'm going to make this a little bit wider. All right. Okay, now it's time to do a little bit of sound design. So, 2 things. So right here, what I like to do when I'm thinking of what is the ambience and the sound effect is I try to think of the ambience as what is the sound of the environment that I'm seeing that's going to help draw somebody in, make it feel more real. So we've added some movement to a still image to create a little bit of that. Now we need an ambience. And then for sound effect, what's at least one sound that we have in this that is going to create the sound of something that I'm seeing in this screen. And so let's just go ahead and look at this. So when I hit play,
Dear college,
we've got kind of this beautiful summer day, college campus.
This for all my adventures.
And we've got somebody kind of standing here, foot in the air, smiling, maybe laughing. So if you go over to the website or over to the project instructions, you'll see there's a couple sources you can go to get some sound effects. There's tons of free sound effects out there, but I'm going to open up both of them. This BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation's free sound effects, and freesound.org. Now, the British Broadcasting Corporation is a great place to start. I might just try searching for something initially like college campus. And college campus says 256 results. Very cool. But you'll notice there's a lot of things, a lot of clarifiers right there. So clocks ticking, Trinity College clock ticking, probably not really a college campus for me. And you can see it's 3 minutes of that. But there's others. Cambridge General College street atmosphere. Interesting. Now this one sounds like a lot of construction, so that might be a bit much. Especially since in this video, we don't really see any of that. We don't see anything here like cars. So even though it's Belmont, and there's construction happening all the time, I don't necessarily want that. Let's look under categories. As I scroll through, we could kind of see things like, okay, industry, daily life, crowd, toys, transports. You could actually kind of just like maybe atmosphere. Okay, no, we got 224 in clocks. How the heck does that make sense? So let's try daily life and hit apply there. Let's see what we get. Entrance halls, college foyer. Now, the thing to notice about this is we only need a few seconds of this, and it's an exterior environment. So I don't think we're necessarily going to have an entrance hall. Although I might use this one later. And then here, because these are so long, 7 minutes, there might be a section of this that sounds great. But if college campus fails me, this is also a very pretty kind of springtime shot. So let's just try for like springtime. Or maybe just spring. And let's see if there's like any sort of atmosphere. Atmosphere, spring. Ooh, quiet spring morning. Great. All right, that sounds good. So I'm going to click the download button. Download as Wave. and it's going to download it as a zip file. I'm going to come over here and put it in on my desktop. Let's go in here, and in my project, I'm just going to make a new folder and call it sound effects or SFX and download it there. Now, when I open that up, you're going to notice that this was downloaded as a zip file. So I'm going to open this, Command O, and that's going to unzip this file. But you'll notice they don't give it a very handy name. So if I open this up, there's a lot of good kind of springtime sounds, but I'm probably going to just copy this and say atmospheres spring, quiet spring morning, or maybe quiet spring morning atmosphere. That sounds good. Boom, quiet spring morning atmosphere. Now the other way we could name it, and this I'm going to leave a little bit up to you, is kind of by what section, what's happening here.
College. You've been the canvas for all my adventures and discoveries.
Okay, so we could name it Dear College, You've Been the Campus, etc. So in fact, I might even just say campus, quiet spring morning. That way I know that that's related to that line. Now I need a sound effect. So that's a good ambience. And now I need a sound effect. Now what sort of sound effect would go with this? Well, when I look at her, I'm thinking maybe laughing, because she's kind of laughing. And so unfortunately, when we hit laughing, we got spotted hyenas. Let's try maybe woman laughing. And we've got a comedy effect. Now that one's gone. Baby's laughing. That's not going to be it. Okay, comedy effect, man laughing, woman snoring. What in the world? Let's see if there's some categories in here. Maybe some people instead of crowds. Daily life. What if I just put laugh? Let's see if there's anything here. Crowds, children, footsteps, continents. This is crazy. That's the British Broadcasting Corporation for you. Footsteps, machine, nature, toys, transport. Now, this might be an example where I come over to Freesound. Now I'm going to click join. Actually, I'm already a member. So if you click join, you just have to make a free account. I'll log into this real quick. Freesound is a website that lets anybody upload these. So I'm going to say laughing woman and see what they come up with. Woman laughing. Let's hit play. Whoa. It's not too bad. Okay, this is... not good. That is crazy. That's like psychopathic. Interesting. Let's play through it and see if we can find a part that works.
Yeah.
Okay, now there might be something in there. So I'm going to go ahead and pause it. Most of these are not going to work, but let me see. I'm just going to pause that. Let's try this one. Let's go ahead. I'm going to... Yeah, I think that'll work.
Right.
And then we can, now that we've got it, let's see, can we download right here? Okay, so click download 7,000 times. Users that downloaded. Okay, there's the downloads. Okay, but that's not actually going to let me download it. So instead, there we go. All right, I'm just going to click on this, download sound. And it's got this kind of name already that's at least better than just a bunch of numbers. So, but I'm just going to call this woman laughing. Okay. All right. So now we've got our sound effect and both of these are ready to be brought in. So I'm going to go ahead and grab these and come over here to Premiere and drag and drop them. And I would put them in this sound effects bin. So if you don't have it, you can see I've already got a bunch of sound effects in here, woman laughing, etc. But that's how I would find them using either of the websites that I suggested here. Just go make a free account and you can find things, just about anything on the freesound.org because people have uploaded lots of things. They're not going to sound necessarily as professional, but oftentimes they're going to be mixed way in the background. So let's just go through and do these two. So I'm going to take the campus since that's our ambience. Now you notice if I just bring it in, well, it's way longer than everything else. So I don't need this. I can't just drag and drop. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to move my source patch. Let's bring it down to here. If you don't see it, we have to load the clip up into our source window, and then this will be visible. So if you do not have something here in the source window, then you will not see this source patch. But now I need to pick some sound for this. So let's zoom in, and I'm going to tell it I only want ambience during this part. So I'm going to hit the X key, and the X key will actually put markers, my in and out points, around this clip since I have the target turned on. So this track is targeted, so X marks the spot and it puts those around. Now I'm going to go find where I want this one to start. It's pretty good. Kind of generic and backgroundy, but this sounds okay. Nothing crazy. Right here might not be a good spot. There's some big cars, but right here should be okay. So I'm going to start it from right there, hit the in point. I don't need to set an out point because by setting the in point, it'll start this clip right here. And because this one has an out point, it'll just fill this space in with as much of this as it needs. So now when I hit the period key, boom, there's my ambience already located in.
Dear College, you've been...
All right, it's too loud, but that's going to work. I'm going to hit the X key one more time, and let's go load up this woman laughing and see if we can find a part that if we put it in the background is going to work well as her laugh. Now there's just some big, like, explosive laughter. That's a little crazy. I kind of liked these. They were a little more subtle. All right, so I think maybe one of these. So I'm going to come in, set my in point, and then again, let's come put this in, move my playhead at the beginning, and period. It's just going to put in as many of them as possible. Oops, it went to the wrong place. It overwrote my ambience. I'm going to undo and move my source patch up to sound effects 1. Oops, I meant to put this one on ambience 1. So I'm just going to alternate. So let's put this on sound effects 1, period key. So now we have some laughs and we have campus.
Dear College, you've been the canvas for all my adventures and discoveries.
Now, not bad, but let's go in and use this sound effect. We don't even see her on screen, so we don't really need a laugh right here.
Dear College, you've been the canvas for all my adventures and discoveries.
Okay, now she does say discoveries, so maybe like a surprised sound would also work. I'm going to stick with this one. I'm just going to trim this down now and maybe kind of tuck this in towards the end of her line. Let's see how that sounds.
Dear College, you've been the canvas for all my adventures and discoveries.
Okay, pretty good. Now, it's conflicting a little bit, so now we need to use our essential sound panel. Now this one, let's start with our campus. I'm going to select it. Let's solo it for a second. And I'm going to clear this audio type because it auto tagged it as a sound effect. But this is actually going to be a ambience. So I'm going to drag this down just a little bit. Tag that as ambience. And this is one of those times where the loudness, believe it or not, doesn't necessarily always help. So if I click on this background and I hit auto match for the loudness, it turned it down just a little bit. So that's good. The ambience really should be pretty quiet. But let's see how it sounds with our track, because these ambiences, just like the sound of the room around you, shouldn't be super loud. It should be really subtle and tucked in the background. Let's try it.
Dear College, you've been the canvas for all my adventures and discoveries. Playing soccer on these...
Not bad. So that actually did pretty good. If we felt like it was competing too much, like for example, I'll turn this up here. If we felt like it was this loud,
Dear College,
where it's competing with her and with the background, that's not what we want. So I'm going to just take this. I might even pull it down a little bit. Here's a secret way or a quick way to make it work. Take it, grab the clip volume, which you might have to scroll down for depending on how many of these are open, but pull it way down. And then I'm going to hit X again so that we've got our in and out points in a loop. Turn on loop playback. So you should look for this little loop playback. It's a little square around a play button. If you don't see it, click on the plus, find it up here. There it is. And just drag and drop it down into your loop buttons or into your buttons. And then you can play this over and over. And here's what I do. I hit play and then I just slowly turn it up.
Canvas for all my adventures and discoveries. Dear College, you've been the canvas for all my adventures and discoveries.
So we can just barely hear it there. And what I do is I'll go through and as it plays, I'll mute it and unmute it. And if I mute it and I go, something's different, like I miss the sound of the background just a little bit, that's probably a good spot. If I mute it and it's like the whole sound changes, then it's probably too loud. So like if I had this thing, I'm just going to turn it up with the keyframe line here. If it was this loud, it already sounds loud to my ears, but if I mute it, you'll notice how much it changes.
Dear college, you've been the canvas for all my adventures and discoveries.
Right? So that lets us know that's too loud. The background of the environment shouldn't be that loud. So I'm going to reset this back to 0 and just use our little clip volume. Hit play. And I can hear the birds. Sounds good. So we've used our auto loudness, but then we also made some minor adjustments here with the clip volume. Next, I'm going to add a little bit of space to it. So under creative, I'm going to turn on reverb. And since this is supposed to be outside, I'm going to choose this outside ambience. If it was inside, I might choose room ambience. I might even try wind effect. Let's see how it sounds. So I've just turned on a little bit of creative. Let's solo it and let's listen to it with and without. So I'll turn it off. Here's what it sounds like without. And with. Now try that. Pause it, turn it off. This already sounds pretty outside, but when we add this outside ambience, this reverb, it actually makes it sound even more kind of distant. Pretty nice. I might even turn that up a bit. And now let's unsolo and see how that sounds.
Dear college, you've been the canvas for all my...
Maybe like a little bit less ambience because it already sounds pretty outdoorsy.
Dear college.
It sounds good. Now let's do this sound effect. I'll select it. It did properly tag it as a sound effect, but let's open up the loudness and select it, make sure we auto match. But I can tell you with sound effects, because they're going to be so different in their volume. Some will be really loud, like a gunshot. Some might be medium, like a footstep. Some might be really quiet, like a twig breaking. So auto match is not going to be nearly as effective for sound effects. In fact, we just auto matched it. Let's see how loud this laugh is now.
You've been the canvas for all my adventures and discoveries.
Way too loud. So auto match, I'm just going to turn off for the sound effect. But under creative, we also have this reverb. If I turn this on though, let's go for outside reverb again because she's outside. And let's bring this level, I'm going to bring it way down until I can barely hear it. And then we'll just nudge it up until we can hear it and we go, oh, there's like a little laugh. But we don't want it in our face because we're listening to her words. But the laugh is going to help sell the fact that she's real. So let's try it now.
Dear college, you've been the canvas for all my adventures and discoveries.
Okay, well, I didn't hear it there. So let me set my in and out point around this and maybe just bring this up a little bit more.
Adventures and discoveries. Adventures and discoveries.
A little more.
Adventures and discoveries. Adventures and discoveries. Adventures and discoveries.
A little bit more. Now this reverb, oh, I'm turning up the reverb. I need to turn up the volume.
Adventures and discoveries. Adventures and discoveries. Adventures and discoveries.
Now I like the little laugh, but if I zoom in on this kind of blast of air.
Adventures and discoveries.
It's like, what is that? Because she's kind of like almost coughing. So we could do a couple things. I could cut that and then turn it down, or I can use this keyframe line, which makes sure if you don't see your audio keyframes, click on the wrench and make sure it says show audio keyframes, just like we've showed video keyframes. With that turned on, I'm just going to turn down this first part a little bit. Hold my command key down, add a little point, a keyframe point before and after, and I'm going to turn down the front of this like blast of laughter. So this lets us change the volume over time rather than just changing the volume of the whole clip. Let's see how that sounds now.
Adventures and discoveries.
Nice. Now I hear her laugh just a little bit better. I'm going to turn the whole clip up a little bit.
Adventures and discoveries.
And now I can kind of barely hear this little laugh in the background. We've got a little reverb on it, so she's far away from us.
Adventures and discoveries.
And that sounds pretty good. Option X to clear our in and out points. Option X. And now let's zoom out, go back and hit play.
Dear college, you've been the canvas for all my adventures and discoveries. Playing soccer on these...
Nice. Okay, and you see how just a little bit of playing with the volumes makes that all sound so nice. So now that sound effect, I want it on sound effects 1. So I'm going to just hold my option key down and hit the up arrow once to move that up. So now we can alternate sound effects and ambiances. Now, so we've already done a search, so you know how to go and search for things, but I'm going to use some of these sound effects I've already downloaded already. So the next one is this soccer.
Playing soccer on these grounds has been more than a game.
All right, so we went through and we found something under soccer. I'm going to tilde this up and look for soccer. And if I load that in, see they found a nice crowd sound. All right, so I'm going to select over this clip. X marks the spot. Find a nice spot with some good old crowd sounds. And I like just the beginning of this clip, to be honest. So I'm going to set my endpoint at the beginning. I don't even have to set the endpoint though. Option X would clear it because it'll default to using the beginning. If I don't set an endpoint, hit the period key. Oops, let's see. This is our ambience. And this, since we already used ambience 1, I'm going to put this on ambience 2. So it's going to go down here right below it. Boom. There's our soccer sound. And then what I want is
Playing soccer on these grounds has been
whenever that kicks, I want the sound of a soccer ball being kicked to take it off. So I went and hunted for a kick sound, and we found a kick right here. And there's that kick. Now, the beautiful part is I put my playhead right where I want that to be. So I'm going to come right to this kick, set my endpoint, and now when I drop it in, that kick is going to happen right where my animation happened. Let's move this up to sound effect 2, and period drops it in. Let's see how it sounds just to begin with. X marks the spot, loop playback.
grounds has been more than a game. Playing soccer on these grounds has been more.
Okay, not bad, but that soccer ambience is super loud. I'm going to select it. It's mistagged as dialogue, so I'm going to clear the audio type, call it ambience. Ambience, a lot of times, we can still use auto match for the loudness. That turned it down even more.
Than a game. Playing soccer on these grounds has been more than a game. Playing soccer on these grounds has been more than a game.
It's pretty good. I'm going to grab it. Maybe let's add a little bit. Still pretty loud. Let's add a little bit of that outside ambience. Turn this on.
Playing soccer on these grounds has been more than a game. Playing soccer on these grounds has
But if it's clashing with the vocals at all, I'm going to just select it and pull its clip down. Now, how much should we turn it down? I can't quite see the number I need to on here. So I'm going to grab this. And remember, when we're adjusting volumes, do it in 3 dB increments as if you're a beginner. 3 dB you'll definitely hear. So I'm going to pull this down 3 dB, -3, and you'll hear it's definitely quieter. The human ear can hear 1 dB changes. We could make it 1 dB quieter, but you're going to have a hard time hearing that difference. Professional audio engineers move things 1/10 of a dB, 1/2 a dB. But let's see if 3 dB, we should be able to hear it's definitely quieter.
been more than a game. Playing soccer on these grounds has been more than a game. Playing soccer on these grounds has
Not bad. Maybe need it down a little bit more, so I'll do it by 6 dB, another 3 dB bump.
been more than a game. Playing soccer on these grounds has been more than a game.
Pretty good. All right, now our sound effect. I'm going to select it. It's already labeled as a sound effect. I already know that this loudness is not going to work, but I will add a little outside reverb. Maybe pump that up and maybe bring this kick down a little. Let's see how it sounds.
Playing soccer on these grounds has been more than
Didn't quite hear the kick that time, so let's take it back up 3 more dB.
a game. Playing soccer on these grounds has been more than a game.
Nice.
Playing soccer on these grounds has been more than a game.
All right, so we've got a pretty good start right here. And what I want to do, so we're just adding in our sounds, making some adjustments. I want to make sure ultimately we're going to be adding some transitions to make this kind of flow together. So did a pretty good job here. Let's do one more for the concert. I'll select over here.
Is the soundtrack of my college story.
All right, so let's come over. I'm going to look in my concert applause. A lot of big sounds there. Let's go and add this back to ambience 1 and drop it in with a period. And we're going to move for a sound effects 1 for, what do we have? I think for this one we found the sound of a microphone feeding back. So I'm going to look for birds, bell tower, basketball, friend, happy, upbeat, laughter, lead, mic drop. So I double click that to load it up. And here's what that sounds like.
Belmont Bass.
Nice little mic kind of squeal. So let's see, where would we have that? I'm going to play. Whoa, way too loud. No problem. Let's remove dialogue. This auto tag thing sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. That's not dialogue. Make it ambience, open up loudness, auto match. It gets a lot quieter. That's better.
The music in Nashville is the soundtrack of my college story.
Not bad. Let's add some outside sort of ambience. Maybe pull the audio down 3, maybe even 6 dB. Again, 3 dB will be a noticeable drop. 6 dB will be twice that. Let's see how that sounds.
More than a game. The music in Nashville is the soundtrack of my college story, filling
Much better. See how it's kind of very in the background? Yeah, we can always split the difference. I could do like 7 or 8 dB if I want it down a little bit more, but not quite as much.
has been more than a game. The music in Nashville is the soundtrack of my college story, filling my nights with rhythm.
And kind of like as we get to our guy right here on stage, that would be the time for our little mic drop. So I'm going to set my sound effect and maybe set my in and my out points with X and period. We'll drop it in, although this says, wait, this clip is not as long as that. So I could say, do I want to ignore the sequence in point? Do I want to ignore this in point or ignore its out point? And in this case, I really just want it to drop right here. So I'm actually going to cancel this and set my in point right where my playhead is. Now when I hit period, I can ignore the out point so that it starts at the sequence in point, since this clip starts right away, and I don't really care how long it needs to go. So I'm going to say ignore the out point, hit OK, and you see it's used the in point, but it ignored the out point. Okay, so I'm going to select that. Let's go ahead. I can try auto matching the loudness, and that actually brought it down, so that might be okay.
My college story, filling my nights with
Whoa, way too loud. Let's go ahead, add a little bit of outside reverb, punch this up.
college story, filling my nights with rhythm.
And let's pull this clip volume down. I think, let's try, I'm going to go like pull it down 9 dB. So that's 3 chunks of 3, because we really just need to hear it a little bit in the background to go, oh, it's like a mic drop.
The music in Nashville is the soundtrack of my college story, filling my nights with rhythm and joy.
Kind of cool. All right. And we could make it, maybe I'm going to put in a little bit more reverb so it sounds a little farther away from us. And maybe bring this down 1 more dB, 1.5 more dB.
The music in Nashville is the soundtrack of my college story, filling my nights with rhythm and joy.
Nice. So that's our process. We would go through and find an ambience and a sound effect for each of our clips. So we don't, we're not going to reuse ambiences. You can go out and just find more, but ultimately you'll have one for each. Now, as we've got these now in better and better shape, we need to go through and clean up our visuals. So we're going to color these so that they're not all the same color. It's kind of confusing. So I'm going to come to my first one, my voice memo. I'm going to right click, go down to label, and I'm just going to pick the first color. So I'll just go with this first color right here. And you can see they've got labels. So you can actually choose a bunch of different types of labels. In this case, I'm going to go with audio dialogue and change that label to audio dialogue. Now these next ones are going to be sound effects. So I'm going to right click on those. I'm going to right click and go to label SFX, sound effects. And that labels them with that color. And I'm going to right click on this one. And here's the thing. When you look under labels, you may or may not have these exact same colors. So for example, my music, if I right click and you see label, you've actually got one for music here. So I'll click music and that changes that's color. But the point is you should just have 4 different colors. So your dialogue should be one, your sound effects should be another, your ambiences should be another, and your music should be another. So in this case, I'll just right click and go to label and maybe call this one my, we don't have any visual effects on this. So I'll just call it captions for now. Boom. Now, where do we get those colors? If you want to look, go into Premiere Pro settings and just open up labels, Premiere Pro settings and labels. And in here, you can actually choose different things. So instead of like maybe where we had captions, I could change that name and call this ambience and hit OK. And now that would actually under label appear as ambience. So you're going to go through and make all those adjustments. So at this point, you have added
Dear College,
nice little videos. You've added some animations. We've pulled in our audio. We've started building our sound design. And now we just need to do a last little set of tweaks to balance things out. All right, let's go through and make our last few tweaks. So we've got our pieces kind of started and laid into place. We've gone through and we've made our adjustments using the Essential Sound panel. Now we just need to make sure that we've got, good, clean edits in general. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to zoom in here And I want to make sure that I have simple little fades and dissolves on every single clip edge. So we don't want any potential clicks or pops. So I'm going to go through and just add little fades to everything. But there will be times like this. I want to make sure I don't like accidentally fade over this kick sound because
has been more
got that nice little kick sound there. But also I want to fade kind of these ambiences together so it's not such a harsh change.
and discoveries. Playing soccer
Where these soccer games, for example, just come in out of nowhere. So what I'm going to do is stretch some of these to actually overlap one another. And in this case, the soccer is maybe just a little bit. Right now, it starts right with the soccer ball effect, which is okay. So I'm going to stretch the end of the previous clip over here and then have this one kind of fade in. So let's see how that looks and sounds.
Playing soccer on these grounds.
So I think actually what I want is for this soccer to come in now just a hair earlier. So I'll move it just a little bit early so that these are kind of fading over one another. And then we're going to add a transition. Now I'm going to come in here and we've learned how to do transitions before, but if we simply select this and hit Command D, that's going to add the default cross dissolve transition, which I can then stretch out to see. And if I hit play,
Playing soccer on
yeah, we get a nice simple little transition.
Playing soccer on these
Not particularly interesting. I'd love to have something a little more interesting. So let's open up our transitions. I'll hit Shift 7 and then come over to Shift 7 takes us to our effects. Let's open up our video transitions here. And we can look at some others. So in here, I've got things like this iris box I could drag and drop in between. And we see a little red line, which just means it needs to be rendered to see the full quality. So I'll hit the return key and that will render any of those, turn them into green lines.
Playing soccer on
And that's fine again, but it's kind of a little bit dated sort of a look. So undo. Let's just delete that one. See if there's any others. Like this zoom maybe is kind of interesting. Try this cross zoom. Let's drag it between the two.
Playing soccer.
Bad, a little fast. Maybe stretch that out. Hover over the edge and stretch it out.
Playing soccer on these grounds has been more than a game.
Ooh, so that zoom actually, I don't love it right there, but it might look good between these. So I'll drag it between since that's kind of like zooming away anyway. Let's stretch that out and see what that looks like.
It's been more than a game. The music in
Ooh, that's kind of cool. So cross zoom worked really well right there. In this case,
playing and discoveries.
kind of stops on her. Maybe a cross dissolve wouldn't be bad there, but I'm going to look at a few others. Maybe some of these. Let's try a wipe. I'm going to drag and put this wipe right here.
Playing
It's a little bit better. So creative with my transitions. I'm going to zoom in, try to adjust them, see how they look.
playing so-
It's not too bad. One thing about it, if I just click on this wipe transition, it just kind of wipes left to right. If I select it and I double click it, or if I select it rather and go to the effect controls, here in the upper left, you'll actually see all these little arrows that will let you choose what direction it goes. So for example, if I click this one, north to south, now you're going to see it's going to fade or wipe from top to bottom. Or if I select it and open the effect controls, I could select that clip again. I could make it go diagonally from the corner.
playing
Not bad. So in this case, I'm just going to select this. I think I kind of liked left to right.
Playing soccer on these grounds has been more than a game. The music in Nashville is
Nice.
the soundtrack of my college.
So all of that is looking really cool. Now, there is one other way that we can add transitions. So I'm going to come right here and bring this down. And let's look at this next one.
Enjoy. Belmont basketball games.
Now, we could go in and add more of our sound effects, but just for our visual right here, one other thing that we can do if we want to add visual effects is actually we can go out and we can download some. So if I go and I search for free Premiere Pro transitions, you will find whole websites full of free transition packs. So come here, 24 free transitions. You click download, put in your email address, and let's see what they've got. Kind of cool. I'm going to mute this. And you see it's got some really kind of interesting transitions. So I'm just going to go ahead and put in my email address. Boom. and download. Okay, here's your download link. I download that. I'm just going to put it in my project folder for now. And you see it comes down as a PRF set file, Premiere FX preset. So I'll download this. And then I'm going to go and open that up. And now we just need to import this into Premiere. So I'm going to come over here to my presets. Let's make this window a little bit bigger. I'm going to right click and we need to import a preset. So I'll go to my effects window, click on the little hamburger menu, and let's choose import presets. And then I'm going to go find that file and drag and drop it in. So it's going to import these presets and I hit OK. And believe it or not, it just imported them in. So if I expand this little presets window out, it's thinking. And if I expand this, you'll see some of these other presets that have been installed. And you can see I've actually got a fair number of them here. So here's this Film Crux transitions that we just downloaded. So I'm going to toggle that open and you'll see we've got glitches, bounce warps, etc. So if I were to come in and let's say, maybe I try this glitch. If I just drag and drop it onto this, you'll notice it does this weird glitch, but that's not a transition. Like that's just adding this glitch effect. So I'm going to undo. Here's how we do this. I'm going to hit Shift minus, so all my clips are small. And we're going to go back to an old friend of ours. Shift 1 takes me back to my project. I'm going to close everything up. And I'm going to come down and make a new adjustment layer. You knew I was going to do it. Go to my little new icon right down here. Click on the new icon and make a new adjustment layer. It'll make one in the size and width and height of this video. Hit OK. And I'm just going to call this adjustment layer. Let's call it transition adjustment layer. All right, now here's what we do. We take that adjustment layer, we put it above our clips. I'm going to trim it to be as long as we want. Let's make these a little bit taller. And we probably only want this to be about 1 second, maybe less, depending on how fast we want these clips to go. So I'm going to make it maybe 20 frames. That's 2/3 of a second. Oh, except we did it at 24 frames a second. So that would, to make it 2/3 of a second would be 16 frames. So let's try 2/3 of a second. So 16 frames, we can see right here on this little line, 16 frames. And I'm going to put it kind of right in the middle. Now, when we go to our effects, Shift 7, if I drop that glitch onto my adjustment layer, let's see how this looks now.
Nights with rhythm and joy. Belmont basketball.
Interesting. The glitch is a little goofy, but it kind of is interesting. Interesting. Maybe I don't love it. I'll select it. And you can see that it added, when I selected that, it added this wave warp to it. And I could try some different changes. Pinning, maybe none, left edge. I don't know. Let's just try a few different things. I'll just change a few things. Let's try this phase, crank it up. I mean, who knows? Noise, I don't know. Let's try square. Whoa. So you got a lot of options you can play with here. Whoa, that's interesting.
Belmont basketball.
Interesting. Anyway, you can play with these. Maybe I don't want this glitch. Cool.
Belmont basketball.
And you can see that that is now creating essentially a transition between the two. And maybe I'll just go back to noise.
Belmont basketball.
Nice. And that'll work.
Belmont.
So by adding an adjustment layer and applying our effect to that, we can get some very interesting sort of transitions that we otherwise can't get. Maybe I'll try this stutter one. I just deleted the other, put stutter on.
Belmont basketball.
Ooh, that's kind of cool.
Belmont.
Great. All right. So we're just going to go through and add our dissolves. We're going to add our fades. We're going to make sure that things are looking interesting. And if you want to be able to create some more interesting transitions, go and do a quick Google search, download the PRF preset and import them with the effects import presets into your project. And now you'll have a bunch of different things. Let's try whip pan. Why not? I'll select this one. I'll delete the effects that it added and try this whip pan left.
Belmont basketball.
Pretty cool. All right, I think I'm just going to undo and stick with the one that I had. Maybe zoom spin. I'm having fun with this.
Enjoy. Belmont basketball.
Wow. Okay. So then when we wanted to do the next one, or if we wanted to use one of those again over these, instead of using the built-in transitions, I can just delete this. I can make a copy of this adjustment layer. This one has, now we've got this one with this directional blur and this transform, and this one I could now come over, delete those, and maybe try a stutter. Or there's others I've downloaded. Maybe I'll try this mosaic. Let's put it on, see what that looks like.
The music in
Interesting, not as interesting, but maybe I'll just do a simple whip pan up.
The music in Nashville is
Interesting. All right, not bad. So let's go through, let's add a few more transitions to smoothly fade between these sounds, make the concert fade over the soccer, and play it back.
playing soccer on these grounds has been more than a game. The music in Nashville is the soundtrack of my college story, filling my nights with rhythm.
And the soccer and concert sounded
Playing
really
soccer
similar when
on
I
these
play it back.
grounds has been more than a game. The music in Nashville is the soundtrack.
So I'm going to grab this concert one and maybe bring it up again. If we use 3 dB as our guide, we'll always be able to hear the difference. So I'm going to go from -7 to -4.4 dB. That'll be a 3 dB increase. Let's see if that sounds better.
The music in Nashville is the soundtrack of my college story, filling my nights.
It's pretty good, but it's a little bit loud and in the way. So I'm going to bring it down, maybe split the difference, and maybe make it a little bit more ambient. So push it farther away.
Has been more than a game. The music in Nashville is the soundtrack of my college story, filling my nights with rhythm and joy. Belmont basketball games are where friends and I bond.
All right. So following that process, we're going to add our transitions. We're going to add our movement. We're going to add our sound effects, and we are making a video
Joy. Belmont
that's already starting to be a lot more interesting. So go through, add your transitions, add your sound effects, do your mixing, follow these same simple steps.
basketball games in Nashville.
And ultimately, you're going to have a project that looks great and sounds great.